actually, you guys are lucky. I don't have a presentation. So that's kind of the good news. Maybe just to kind of briefly talk about Zubi Labs, and I thought that maybe kind of would be interesting, given I'm guessing most of you are kind of from the corporate side, maybe to share kind of from an entrepreneur side, like how do you kind of see this world evolving from like starting something from scratch? Because I think it's always interesting getting the mind of the other side to kind of understand of ways to work. I guess, Iqbal, I guess, I see that, it's great to make money, but it's with businesses, but there has to be something more. And I cannot believe of co-founding stuff and creating stuff that has a positive impact. So this is like, if you have a knife at home, you can use it to cut apples and prepare an apple pie with your kid. That's great. Or you can use it to kill your neighbor. And the knife is the same. The company is the same, and you can gear it towards what you want. And I just kind of feel entrepreneurship and companies are great to see the impact, or see the world change with the impact that you like to have. And so that's kind of what I'm now into. I mostly feel as an entrepreneur. Sometimes I do invest as an angel in different companies within education, health, emerging countries, and sustainability. We just started creating an educational group focused on personalized education from Valencia. We're actually opening our first school in September. We are 3 families that we have kids similar age. We started looking for schools, and we kind of realized all sucked, and we said we just build one. So that's kind of where we're focused. It's called Imagine Montessori School. And we kind of run it, or we think about it as, hey, it has to be sustainable, but at the same time, we're looking at the impact. We're creating a scholarship fund and a bunch of things that are around it. We also have investment in Africa, actually, that focuses on energy access over there, which is the 600 million people, because you do need some way to charge your phone. It's kind of the enabler for other developments. But I'm going to tell you kind of the story of my previous company, PeerTransfer. And so the story is about this charming, wonderful, and super nice guy called Iker. And I have to cheer you up. This last talk of the evening. We're over time. I have to do my best. So essentially, I see sometimes entrepreneurs as these guys that are looking for, these trends in the market, and people are using more Twitter, so I need to track a bunch of people, and I have to create a way like to track all these Twitter things, and there's a company that's has founded doing that Twitter and was sold to another company and so on. And there are other people that are these spin-offs, fantastic spin-offs, kind of come from the university, super tech deep, and it's like, wow, you're so smart. I'm the dumb entrepreneur that says, hey, I suffered this, and this doesn't make sense. Why not change it? And that's kind of how it all started. And it was 2009, and I was going for my MBA at MIT, and went to pay my tuition. At that time, went to my bank, and actually the money got lost. So emails back and forth with the university to figure out where the funds were, and realized kind of in the process how much money I ended up losing, because apart from like the fixed fees, the 30 euros or whatever, the exchange rate the banks gives you, and this kind of is bad. I feel bad like being invited and talking about banks at this building. But anyway, actually I got a scholarship from Caja Madrid to go to MIT. So kind of it's open innovation, I guess.
You can use my king
there. So Caja Madrid actually was. So here's funny because it was Caja Madrid that paid my tuition, that got the money when they made the payment to the university. The money got lost because the university didn't know. They saw a payment from Caja Madrid, and they didn't realize it was for me. So they couldn't post it on my account. So then out of that, Caja Madrid did a great job with the university to then inspire me to build a company that now is somewhat competing with banks. But so essentially kind of realized that you end up paying all these fees and getting money lost, and like all this doesn't make sense, right? In my case, sending $40,000, you end up paying about $3 3, 4, 5% in the marginal exchange rate, so it just lost $1,000. So I thought, how unfair it is that for like large companies that have a lot of negotiating power and even are aware of these, they will get really small spreads, margins. But then for me, like as an individual or a small company that we're working hard and maybe we're putting like all our savings into this, to go to school, we just lose a ton of money. And I said, hey, why not actually create the alternative to an international bank transfer? Which was like me naive, totally naive, 27 or whatever, saying, hey, I'm gonna get in one of the most regulated industries in the world, and I think I can actually do something. But because you're naive, you kind of start rolling and get these moving. And it's interesting because I started thinking about these international wire products, think about kind of all uses. So thinking from my perspective as a customer, I think there's kind of always value in identifying opportunities, but if it's just that you like something, then like you probably not have a great business around it. So when I started meeting with schools, because I hope that maybe a school could potentially endorse these to students, because I had that need and I was a student and I had other classmates that were using this solution. I thought maybe students was an interesting segment. So kind of I was there almost begging, going to MIT to see if they could potentially tell some students. And surprisingly, they told me, oh yeah, these payments, that's a mess, Because here's the thing. So MIT has like 3,000-4,000 international students, but half of those come from China. And there are two very popular last names in China, Li and Wang. So now you can kind of imagine what happens. So here's a payment shows up. It's not from Caja Madrid, but it's from a Li or a Wang. Now the university has to cross who that payment matches against. And here's even more fun because the payments many times come from parents, from uncles, from grandpas or whatever. So then it's like a total mess. It's like a total mess. And this is like a super silly thing. Like here we are talking about like super important things in the world, and like you're telling me that you cannot cross a payment because you don't know who it's coming from. It's like this problem should have been invented long time ago, right? It's like instant payments, real time, everything super simple, and here we are. And I said, well, it's interesting. So why don't we just turn around the business, and instead of focusing on the student or whoever's making the payment, we focus on you. So we figured a way that maybe we can help you and save you time when you reconcile that payment. Maybe there's something interesting here, because of course, if you as a university tell all your 4,000 international students to use us, you don't have to create any trust. And by the way, we don't have to spend barely any money because you've acquired all those customers for us. So then we kind of turn around the business and build a solution for these universities. So essentially like a payment processor for international transactions in which we reconcile. So essentially we link the money with information. And you'd say, well, this is kind of, okay, we're talking about payments. But here's the thing, here's kind of the aha moment. If you truly focus on the customer, you'd understand what they're trying to solve, not the product or the feature of the stuff you have. Because why hasn't a bank thought about this? Well, if you're thinking about, oh, here's my line of product for making international payments, the payment goes and goodbye, I don't care, that's fine, but that doesn't mean your customer is solving their problem. Your customer, when they're making a payment, they probably want to know the money arrived in time, everything's solved and all that stuff. And if you talk with banking people, say, well, that's Swift system, right? But Swift, when it was bought, it was, it's a pretty legacy system that doesn't trace very effectively the payment, just because there are a lot of intermediate banks which sometimes truncate the information in between. So this is like, if I tell the guy here at the end, message, when it gets here, it's probably very different. So it's interesting, and the banks didn't, there's no bank that has like a global footprint, truly global footprint. So they can't be always on both sides. So it's interesting because, like, by coming from the outside, I guess you come with the perspective of the customer and realize what's truly important for that customer. And in this case, for the university was, hey, I want to get my payment posted, like I don't want to spend any time. And this proved, and of course, this kind of education seems to be a great way to start, because globally it's moving like $50 billion, and in the US around 20. And that's kind of how it started. And then from there we raised a series of venture funding and all that stuff. Now the companies all around the world has offices in Singapore, Australia, Canada, UK, US, and it's moving around $2 billion per year, doubling every year. So it's interesting because if you look at the impact on the bank's P&L, it's fairly small. You'd say, well, it's more or less $30 million that are lost by banks, by customers using these solutions versus the banks. So, I mean, in a bank's P&L, that's fairly small. And if you say, well, it's not just coming, say, from one country, it's coming from students from like 300 countries. But it's interesting because there's a bunch of companies eating, little pieces of the P&L and growing, twice per year, doubling every year. So it starts getting kind of a bit more serious, especially if these companies, like in my case, it's expanding into other stuff, healthcare, and different type of payments. So this was kind of just maybe as an example of like how sometimes these things get set up from the start. But it kind of also, I think along that journey, I was really interested in kind of seeing the involvement of the awareness of large companies towards like emerging companies. And it has completely changed. Like when I started in 2009, open innovation was fairly widespread, but if you actually look at what are people doing, it was like, okay, this is kind of a side thing, we don't spend too much time. Now, probably, how many of you like have some type of contact with like startup, whether you've put money in a fund, you invest in startups, or you have a program that accelerates startups, or okay. Wrong question. I asked the last question. So it's interesting. So it's interesting to present it because you'd see, 10, 20 companies in Spain, corporate groups, which are spending a lot of time. Bankinter, one of them. And I think realizing, and I was looking kind of listening of banks, but at the end realizing that how you, by creating value, and this is the thing, Iqbal is interesting because Iqbal in some sense create a market out of nothing. Because if you give a tool to someone, it enables them to make money, then they will end up paying your service, which they purchased, with the money they generated. And you create something from scratch. I think the game here, at the end, is how, by working together, we can actually create something bigger. Of course, I'm going to share part of my, I'm going to give you part of my pie, but at the end of the day, it's going to be best for everyone. And sometimes I see companies approaching these from the angle of, we'll just hang out with startups, it seems cool. I want to meet with people that have ties. But at the end of the day, that's only sustainable if you have a true impact on your P&L, right? Why would you do something unless it has truly an impact on your P&L? And I think that's at the end of the day how you focus things. So it's interesting. He was talking about actually Chris was talking about crowdsourcing, and I wonder what are the next stages here? Crowdsourcing seems, hey, here's a challenge. Someone has a good idea. My challenge is, hey, why don't we just build a product, build a company? I link that with me, and for example, with privacy. And here's like a random thought, but it seems like I have a bunch of data, and you have a bunch of data, and you have a bunch of data, but I don't want to shoot. So why don't we create a startup, someone that has independent arm's length, that actually has access to the information, and on an anonymous level, or maybe on a pattern, was like, hey, here's the type of people that do these kind of things, shares this with us, so we all actually get much smarter, and we don't get into privacy issues. Like, is that a tool you could potentially leverage to get to that result? And it's kind of like a Fitbit on steroids for you guys that are on the space. But so I think there are many opportunities for collaboration around these